Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today, my guest is Scott Segal, who is the founder and president of J&J Green Paper Incorporated. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Good. How you doing today, Cory?
Good. Thank you so much for taking some time. I think you're located overseas.
Well, no, our main office is in Miami. We
Oh,
have operations now on all continents except for Antarctica.
oh
But
wow. That's amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this business? Tell us about your business.
and I'll start with what we have and where we are, and then I'll sort of back trade a little and give you a Cliff Notes version.
Okay.
Um, what we have today is the only viable replacement for polyethylene coated paper material. And just to sort of snapshot that for you, practically every piece of paper that holds an item, whether it's a coffee cup or a soda cup, or even the box that your tube of toothpaste comes in, has a barrier coating on the paper to prevent you, whether it's oxygen, moisture, or grease, to get through. And the typical or atypical product today is polyethylene. Polyethylene is a derivative of crude oil, which is also classified now as a single-use plastic, because when you finish your coffee cup, it goes into the rubbish bin.
Right.
What most people do not know, and I'm sure most of your listeners do know, is that all those cups and boxes that you get in bags, they end up in landfills because of that polyethylene coating. It's non-compostable, non-recyclable. It has some recyclable ability, but it's not economical. And it's obviously non-biodegradable. Depends on what scientific study you read, but it takes up to 400 years for a coffee cup to migrate into the earth.
Wow.
And it's a problem. And so what we've developed, we started this project almost 10 years ago, is we have the only organic, 100% biodegradable, backyard compostable, and repulpable or recyclable, depends on your terminology, direct replacement for polyethylene. We have a product, we've trademarked it as Janus, Janus, and it replaces polyethylene on paper goods as a one-for-one. If they're using 1 ton of polyethylene, they'll not use 1 ton of our product. And so that's in essence what we do. And
So you provide the coating to the paper companies.
We provide the coating to, it's such a segue business that it's, we're dealing with end users, and then they direct the paper mills, the converters, and everybody in between, because there's one of the real dichotomy of this industry is paper itself is very inexpensive, but it's very heavy.
Right.
So transportation is the bulk of the cost. So you have literally thousands of people in between, the McDonald's restaurant and the, International paper mill, because of the transportation issue. So we're selling and supplying the replacement for polyethylene. So we're dealing with everybody in between. It's mostly coming from the users, the end users, and they're now starting to direct the usage of it.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the coating's made out of without sharing your industry secrets?
Yeah, well, we're not really sharing anymore because our patents are in the public domain, and so we use it's a byproduct, and in some terms, they use the waste of several vegetables and crops when they're done taking for an example, one of our portions it comes from the rice husk.
Oh.
So after the rice kernel has been removed from the husk, we acquire the husk, and then through a process of heat and pressure, we extract out of that a substance, which we then use that and blend it with several others to create the compound for coating of the material. So one of the real interesting parts about our product is that, unlike ethanol, in the gasoline industry, which is a byproduct of corn, to create more ethanol, you take corn out of the food market. So it creates another problem. Ours, we're taking basically a lot of waste that has been, the industry was paying people to haul it away, and we found a use for it. And so we're able to, with no interference in the food market, created this product that is now, well, it's going to change the face of the paper industry, the barrier paper industry, I should say, ice cream cartons to that little brown box that you put your food in at Whole Foods,
Right on. Very exciting. And I love to hear those kind of sustainable stories where people are using an item that was discarded and turning it into something that's now very productive, and not only very productive, but replacing an item that's not very sustainable. Well done.
Yeah. Well, you can now take a cup, and in essence, after you finish drinking your soda or your cup of coffee, and you can literally pitch it out the window of your car, and in 12 to 14 weeks, it'll compost into the ground. And so it's a huge change, because even the recycling industry, which is very difficult, has to pull all that out and put it into the landfill. So now it could go into the landfill, and it's actually gonna compost or biodegrade into the ground. So, the extrapolation is not just on the biodegradability or the plastic, as some say, because what you have is a complete vertical integration of energy, because it takes less energy to produce our product than it does the polyethylene. It takes less energy to apply it to the paper. And so you're also taking out, and you're reducing the carbon footprint dramatically. I mean, we had to do for one of our customers, which I'm under a very stringent NDA because they're getting ready to do a global announcement, but I will say that they're one of the largest beverage companies in the world, if not the largest. And we had to do for them a complete life cycle of, attrition to the carbon footprint. And the carbon footprint alone is something like 60 times less with ours than it is with the polyethylene. So that's what I'm saying. There's so many factors that we didn't know. I mean, we've learned along the way, just fascinating parts of what has been, part of this single-use plastic debacle that, I don't know any other word that is sort of,
yeah.
So yeah, no, it's rewarding in many fronts.
Right. Well, that's awesome. I want to be clear to the audience. We're not advising that you throw your cups out the window.
No, absolutely not. But here's the difference. If you went by in any restaurant and you picked up a soda or a coffee cup and you threw it out the window, it's right there. So, it's a huge change, when you start talking about compostability and repulpability, because even though the timber industry, the paper industry, they cut trees, the majority of them are part of the Forestry Act, where they have to replace those trees. So, to give you one set of numbers, which will sort of put that comment in perspective, in North America alone, we put in landfill 60 billion coffee cups a year. Okay, so you take that number and now you break that apart, and that is 20 billion trees and 10 billion gallons of water that is not reusable. Because if you drink that coffee cup and it goes in a landfill, besides the methane gas it creates and the carbon footprint to get it there, those are trees and water that can't be replaced. So if you have something that is truly repulpable or recyclable or compostable, part of that is going back into the growth of the environment. And that's what I was saying. Like, yes, you really should not throw your cup out the window. Don't get me wrong. But if you do, it's not the same as throwing a polyethylene coated cup out the window, because of the negativity that is, which is why some of the regulations in the world are changing. Like in Europe, this SUPD has become incredibly stringent, and they're moving forward, and other areas like the UK and Australia and even parts of Latin America have been eliminating single-use plastic. Here we heard about the straws, okay, areas and things like that, but it's happening at a very accelerated rate.
Yeah, I very well said. The laws are changing quickly. Extended producer responsibility is taking hold all over the world. And I think what you're saying is very accurate. I think there'll be major changes here soon. They're happening now as we speak. Can your material be recycled? Would you encourage that?
Yeah, actually, we have certification. We spent, I'm going to say, about 2.5 years working on getting all of the certifications. We have FDA, food contact, food consumption. We have life cycle studies done. We sent the material to get it certified for recycling and repulpability, biodegradability, backyard compostability, which is a big issue because you'll see if you go into the market, you'll pick up cups or boxes and it'll say on there compostable.
Right.
That's really not necessarily factual. It is compostable, but if you read the fine print, it's industrial compostable.
Right.
It's not backyard compostable. So there's a lot of these, little changes. There's some of the larger chains, they put the little recycling emblem on their coffee cup, and people assume that means it's recyclable, but what it means is that 10% of the paper used is from recycled material. So
Right.
they sort of clouded over some of the issues, but our product is backyard certified, backyard compostable. It is 100% recyclable, repulpable, and it is biodegradable. So it meets all the protocols and criteria.
That's really great. I've heard a lot of debate about backyard compostable and people saying, well, are you really going to put your packaging in the backyard? Are you really going to put it in your garden? But I think the answer to this that's really exciting is that it's either recyclable or compostable, which to me is the
Right.
best. I'd like to encourage people to recycle it because we need to keep those fibers in play and use them again. But like you said, if something happens and it does end up in a place where it needs to biodegrade or compost, that's great. Well
Right.
done.
Well, it's not a detriment. That's
Right.
like you said, obviously the ideal situation is to send it to be repulped so that it can be reused again.
Yeah.
Okay. Unlike what people think about plastic, which only has one or maybe two life cycles. So even if it gets to be recycled, it can't be used, and it can't be used for other food items. Okay. So ideally that's what you want. But as we know, and if you read the statistics, 2 or 3% of everything recyclable makes it to a recycling facility. So if that happens, then our product biodegrades or composts into the ground. And actually, some of our product adds nutrients back to the ground. Like one of the products that we are patenting right now as an additional product is the replacement for the plastic in farm fields. If you've driven by farm fields where they have like tomatoes or strawberries and they have the ground covered in a black plastic.
Yeah.
So we make a paper that's coated in our material so that when they finish the farm season and they finish the harvest, they can just grind it right into the ground and it
Oh,
actually
that's great.
back. So that's some of the differences with recyclable, repulpable products.
That's a huge development. Well done. That's very exciting. My father-in-law is a farmer. We drive through the farming community and see that plastic on the fields, and you hope that they are able to clean it up but that it's going into the landfill for the most part. So the fact
Or
that you can,
land. That's one of the issues.
yeah,
Legally now they have to pick it up. Years ago they just burned it, but
right.
but after 150 days of being in the dirt, a lot of the plastic ends up staying in the dirt. So it's counterproductive. But this is the nature of the direction that we're going. Things are changing though. Things are changing dramatically.
What kinds of things are you seeing that are exciting?
Well, we're doing, as I mentioned, we're involved with this enormous, global beverage company, and one of their, for lack of a better word, partners where they distribute through is the largest restaurant chain in the world. So we're doing for them. We're running all the pilot programs for, things like hamburger packaging and hamburger wrap and French fry containers and plastic bottle. We're not a replacement for a plastic bottle, but the label that goes around the pods, the plastic pods that go into the coffee machines, we make, and it's inclusive in our patents. We have a replacement for that plastic pod with a paper pod coated in our material. So we've been working through many products with several of these very large conglomerates that are sort of spread around the world in different products that have to be replaced. It's just, you don't realize the millions and millions of pounds of paper just that hamburgers are wrapped in. Okay. Right. I mean, when you start thinking about the statistics, I mean, if you take like, McDonald's as an example, they serve 6,000 drinks a day per restaurant. You're talking about 90 billion drinks a year. Okay. So, we know there companies like that are huge. What the consumers don't know is that even the box that your bar of soap comes in is coated with polyethylene. I mean, imagine if you open the bar of soap and the name, whatever it was, Dove or Ivory or Palmolive, it was smeared. You wouldn't use it. You would think that something is wrong. So they have to coat it, a barrier. And so, we and even myself, who is new to this industry, believe that everything paper was recyclable.
Yeah. Yeah, very common misconception. Where did you come from? What was your last?
Well, I started in the investment banking business in the 80s. I got hired by a private investment bank that took me to China in the early 80s. And then I went out on my own in 1990. And my business has been in mainland China for, since the I was working in the 80s from the 90s on into manufacturing and in real estate development. And this project just happened. I mean, it's one of the, it truly is one of those stories. It didn't start out this way. I was thinking about trying to create a new, more green pizza box, which led to the polyethylene coating, which led to coffee cups, which, led to the search for a barrier. And actually, the real twist to the story is that I found some of the method to find a barrier from lipstick.
Oh, interesting.
Because, lipsticks were primarily all petroleum. And so they started, the cosmetic industry is probably the first major industry to try to go organic and natural. And so I started looking at lipsticks that were organic, because if they could find a way to make a lipstick that had a barrier, because if a woman puts a lipstick on and it comes off, then it's not a very good barrier. But we basically dissected all the organic lipsticks that were around the world until we started finding different ingredients and then mixing and matching it. And after a couple of years of trial and error doing that, we started to find a method to have a barrier for paper. And so it just evolved. And I will say that COVID, as horrendous as it has been around the world, has really been a big help in this industry, because it opened everybody's eyes to the real problem, and now people are really observant, because listen, we were all home, people were home, and the garbage was piling up, and people started saying, well, wait a minute, what is all this plastic here? And it really, they say one door opens, one closes, another opens, and COVID really opened the door, and it may be one of the saviors of our planet.
Yeah, I think a very good point. A lot of people took a hard look at what they were consuming, what their waste stream looked like at home, and companies did the same, because their volume increased. Many of our customers' volume increased dramatically overnight. And all of a sudden, everything is 30% more or 40% more, and you have to deal with these extra changes. Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't thought about that as kind of an impetus for a lot of change. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and I think that, there are people on both sides of the fence about climate change, but there's a lot of talk about the plastic in the oceans and microplastics in everything you eat. And so people are really, they spend a lot of time on social media and on the computer and on the watching television during that period when everybody in the world was locked down.
Yeah.
And so it's made a big difference, and it's forced switches. And for us, the timing couldn't have been better. We came to market with our product right as this was happening. And then the big companies, the big conglomerates that are really the main players, they need a change, and they want to change. We're finding that out. We're dealing on a global basis with a couple of these, major companies, and it's not that they are looking to just sort of cover over something. We're truly working with them to make a huge change in the world. And they're gonna, you're gonna be reading about a couple of them in the next couple of months. They're planning a major global announcement about what they're doing. And it's not a cover over. You hear, oh, we're gonna make a change by 2025, and we'll be cage-free chicken, or we'll be strawless by that. I will say that the one major beverage company, that they really are, that they're doing things that are even shocking, to the point with the kind of changes that they're now going to be making to improve our environment.
It's exciting. Like you said, a lot of these companies have goals they've announced for 2025, 2030, 2050, which seems too late to me. But yes, I think it's a lot of pressure in a good way on these companies to make major changes and do things that are more sustainable. That's exciting.
Absolutely. And listen, it always comes down to the consumer.
Right.
Consumer puts their foot down, then the big guy has to make the change. And I can tell you that the consumer hasn't put their foot down yet. Some of these companies that we're now dealing with this is internal. They see that what has happened, and they're trying to, logistically and economically make a transition. And we're part of it with a couple of companies. I say part of it. There's still lots of things that are nowhere near what we can do. We can't even fulfill physically the demand that they have put on us. We're working on trying to even figure that part of it out. But the methodology and what they're doing, they're not going to make this, well, we're going to get it done by 2030.
Right.
At least they told us, we can't talk anymore. We need to be in the market right now.
Yeah.
And they're skipping, I can tell you that they're skipping over many protocols that they normally would have, because they want it in the market right away, which shows you that even at the very top, some of these people want the change to occur.
Yeah. That's very exciting. So you can help people accomplish those goals that they've set. And I think there are very few companies that can really say that they're a part of the solution. So well done.
Yeah, no, we are part of the solution.
What's the best place for people to reach out to you?
Well, we have, I think for us, at least from my point of view, it's more of an education. The more consumers that really understand what's going on, the better it's going to be for the industry. And I'm one of those that says, competition is good. Okay. Yeah. And that the market is so big. It's ridiculous, stratospheric. 35 million tons of polyethylene a year is used to coat paper just for the food and beverage industry and the packaging industry. Wow. And so there's enough room for dozens of companies like ours. And the issue is that there's not enough consumers to put enough pressure for other people to go out and find a solution, or to work with us to make it, to broaden the solution. So I think the best thing is for people really to go to our website, the jjgreenpaper.com. Yeah. It's not a sales website. It's purely an informative website. And it's embarrassing to say that we can't even keep up with what we have. We're telling people you're just going to have to wait. But the more consumers that really digest it, and like your listeners and then other people in the industry, when they find out what's going on, then we can bring more products like ours to the market, and then we can sort of fill that gap and shorten that 35 million tons and eventually get it to zero.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Scott. I'd like to thank Landsberg Aurora for your sponsorship and your partnership and support of this podcast. If you're listening, please take a minute to review it and share it with your friends. And thank you so much, Scott. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and have a great day. Let me know if you need anything else.